October 31st, 2025, 11:47 p.m. Moscow time. Ramenskoye District, Moscow region. Three massive explosions ripped through the night. Flames shot hundreds of meters into the air, turning the darkness into an inferno. This was a sabotage operation deep inside Russia, and the people who pulled it off were already gone. The target, the Koltsevoy pipeline system, the ring pipeline that feeds fuel to Moscow and Russian military operations across the Western Front. Russian authorities scrambled. Power went out in nearby districts. Emergency services rushed to the scene, but the damage was already done. Millions of tons of fuel capacity gone in 3 coordinated blasts. And here's what makes this even more remarkable. This wasn't a drone strike. This was boots on the ground. Ukrainian saboteurs had infiltrated the Moscow region, planted explosives on 3 pipelines simultaneously, and disappeared before anyone knew what happened. But to understand how Ukraine pulled off this operation and why it matters so much, we need to travel 700 kilometers south to a small industrial town that's become the center of the most intense fighting in the entire war. November 1st, 2025, Pokrovsk, Donetsk region, the town Russia wants most. Pokrovsk doesn't look like much on a map. A town of about 60,000 people before the war. Railway junction, industrial area, quiet residential neighborhoods. The kind of place most people outside Ukraine had never heard of. But in military terms, Pokrovsk is everything. And Russian forces get a direct route to larger cities like Kramatorsk and Kostiantynivka, the industrial heartland of eastern Ukraine. Russian forces have been trying to take Pokrovsk for months, slowly grinding forward, taking casualties that would break most armies, sending wave after wave of assaults. And in recent weeks, they'd started achieving what Ukrainian commanders had been dreading. Approximately 200 Russian soldiers had infiltrated Pokrovsk, not surrounding it from outside, inside, in the streets, in the buildings, fighting house to house. The last resupply routes into the town were under direct Russian fire. The noose was tightening. This was the situation when Ukrainian special forces decided to do something bombastic. Before we begin, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. October 28th, 2025, 2:35 p.m. local time. Somewhere near Pokrovsk, the rhythmic thump of rotor blades echoed across the autumn sky. Inside the UH-60 Black Hawk, 11 Ukrainian Special Forces operators sat in tense silence. These were Ukraine's best, the kind of operators you don't see on the evening news, the kind trained in close-quarters combat, advanced tactics, and operations that don't make it into official reports. Their gear was top-tier, Western optics, suppressors, encrypted communications, and they were being sent into Pokrovsk for one reason. The situation had gone from bad to worse, and someone needed to stop the bleeding. Through the open doors, they could see Pokrovsk's outskirts approaching, smoke rising from the town, the scars of artillery strikes across the landscape, and somewhere down there, far too close for comfort, Russian forces waiting. The pilots knew the math. Every second on the ground was a second for Russian mortars to range in, for machine guns to open up, for the operation to go catastrophically wrong. Faster, the Black Hawk flared hard, nose up, bleeding speed. The operators felt their stomachs drop as the helicopter descended rapidly toward a field on the northwestern edge of town. Weapons ready, they poured out in practiced movements. No hesitation, boots hit ground. Weapons up, eyes scanning, sectors of fire established in seconds. The helicopter's turbines screamed as it lifted off immediately, leaving them in sudden, ringing silence. Russian reconnaissance drones captured everything. What happened next? The drone's eye view showed it all. The Black Hawk touching down, Ukrainian operators dispersing from the aircraft, the helicopter climbing away into the sky. And the Russian Defense Ministry wasted no time spinning their narrative. 11 Ukrainian special forces eliminated. Mission failed. Elite troops destroyed before they could make a difference. Look, Ukraine's best forces are being slaughtered. Pokrovsk is falling. The end is near. Victory is inevitable. But then something interesting happened. Ukrainian sources started pushing back. Not with denials exactly, more like whispers that things weren't what they seemed. A source inside Ukrainian military intelligence spoke to CNN, and their message was blunt. The Russian claim was bullshit. Not only had the mission succeeded, but Kirilo Budanov, the legendarily secretive head of Ukraine's defense intelligence, was personally overseeing stabilization operations in Pokrovsk. The operators were alive. The mission was ongoing. Then came the official statement from Ukraine's 7th Aerial Assault Corps. Professional, measured, almost boring in its bureaucratic language. It was a complex operation that required synchronized actions of various units, but the implications were clear. Ukrainian forces had improved their tactical positions in several districts of Pokrovsk. They were increasing assault group numbers in the city. And oh, by the way, in the past week alone, they'd killed 85 Russian soldiers in close quarters fighting. So who was telling the truth? Had Ukraine's elite operators been wiped out in a disastrous helicopter insertion, or had they successfully infiltrated the besieged town and turned the tactical situation around? The answer was buried somewhere between propaganda and reality, in the fog of a war where both sides claim victory and both sides lie when it suits them. Welcome to modern warfare, where the battle for information is as important as the battle on the ground. Here's what we actually know from verified sources and geolocated footage. Russian forces have penetrated Pokrovsk. Videos show small Russian groups moving through the southern part of town. The railway station area has seen heavy fighting. Russian units are attempting to cut the last supply routes into the city, but Ukrainian forces are still there, still fighting, conducting operations. General Oleksandr Syrsky, Ukraine's military commander, visited the area personally on November 1st to coordinate the defense. His statement was clear. Pokrovsk and neighboring Mirnohrad are not surrounded or blocked, and we are doing everything to maintain logistics. Syrsky described a comprehensive operation to destroy and dislodge enemy forces from Pokrovsk. Ukrainian units had even managed small counterattacks, advancing marginally north of the town according to the Institute for the Study of War. If Pokrovsk falls, it would be the largest urban area captured by Russian forces since they took Bakhmut in May 2023. But Pokrovsk is more valuable than Bakhmut ever was. Bakhmut was symbolically important, but strategically limited. Pokrovsk is a genuine logistics hub. Ukrainian forces across southern Donetsk region depend on supplies flowing through Pokrovsk. Take Pokrovsk, and Russian forces can push toward Kramatorsk and Kostiantynivka. Reported that Russian forces gained 267 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. While fighting raged in Pokrovsk, Ukrainian operatives were executing an entirely different kind of mission 700 kilometers away. Map. The Koltsevoy pipeline system forms a ring around Moscow, fed by multiple refineries. It supplies military bases, airports, and civilian infrastructure across the Moscow region. It's the kind of target that's supposed to be impossible to hit with sabotage. It's deep inside Russia. It's protected. There are security patrols. There's supposed to be surveillance. And after previous Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian infrastructure, the Russians had installed anti-drone netting over critical sections. The netting would stop drones. It wouldn't stop people. October 31st, 2025. Timeline of a sabotage operation. We don't know exactly when the Ukrainian team entered the area. We don't know how they got there. Ukrainian defense intelligence isn't sharing those details, and for good reason. They'll want to use the same methods again. 3 separate pipeline sections near Ramenskoye, south of Moscow. Anti-drone netting installed over each one, and under that netting, explosive charges being carefully positioned. This wasn't random destruction. This was precision sabotage. The charges were placed to maximize damage to the pipeline infrastructure while creating spectacular secondary effects. The devices were set to detonate simultaneously. Maximum impact. Maximum disruption, 3 massive explosions. The anti-drone netting, designed to stop aerial threats, did absolutely nothing against charges planted directly on the pipelines. The blasts ruptured all 3 lines simultaneously. Power went out in parts of Zhukovsky district. Whether from damage to electrical infrastructure or emergency shutdowns isn't clear, and here's what the Russians couldn't hide. This happened in the Moscow region, not in some distant border area where they could claim it was a military target, far from civilians. This was in the capital's surrounding region. This was Russia's heartland. The message was unmistakable. Ukraine can reach you anywhere. The official statement from Ukrainian Defense Intelligence was matter of fact. The Koltsevoy oil pipeline, which supplied the Russian occupation army, was disabled on Friday in a special operation. All 3 lines used by the aggressor to transport gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel were successfully and simultaneously blown up. They wanted everyone to know this wasn't a lucky hit. This was a planned operation. We got in. We planted the charges. We destroyed the target. We got out. No word from Russian authorities about casualties among the sabotage team. No claims of capturing anyone. No arrests announced, which suggests the team got away clean. This pipeline attack wasn't isolated. It's part of a systematic campaign that's been intensifying for months. Long-range drones striking refineries, missiles hitting pumping stations, sabotage teams destroying pipelines. The goal: strangle Russia's ability to fuel its war machine. Our strikes have had more impact than the sanctions. We have caused much greater damage to the Russian Federation through direct action than any economic levers of influence that have been introduced so far. Multiple Russian regions reported fuel shortages. Russia started importing more fuel from Belarus to compensate, which means they're spending money and resources to replace capacity that Ukraine keeps destroying. Ukraine can't match Russia's overall military size. But Ukraine can make it incredibly expensive for Russia to keep fighting. Every refinery struck is one that can't produce fuel for Russian tanks. Every pipeline destroyed is one that can't supply Russian air bases. Ukraine is hitting Russian energy infrastructure because it degrades Russia's ability to sustain operations. Less fuel means fewer sorties by Russian aircraft, fewer tank movements, reduced logistics capacity, more money spent on repairs instead of ammunition. It's a race. Can Russia achieve territorial objectives before Ukraine degrades their capacity to sustain operations? Right now, the answer isn't clear. Russian forces are advancing in Pokrovsk, but slowly and at enormous cost. Ukrainian strikes on Russian infrastructure are having measurable effects. Fuel shortages, production disruptions, resource diversion. But Russia's a big country with substantial reserves. They can absorb damage that would cripple smaller nations. So the grinding continues. In Pokrovsk, Ukrainian soldiers are defending their positions against overwhelming Russian assaults. Artillery barrages, infantry attacks, urban combat where every building is a potential death trap. They're fighting not just for territory, but for time. Time for Ukraine to build defenses elsewhere. Time for Western support to arrive. Time for Russian resources to run out. Russian soldiers, many of them conscripts with minimal training, are being sent into meat grinder assaults. And in the Moscow region, ordinary Russians living near the Koltsevoy pipeline woke up to explosions and wondered if the war they'd been told was far away and going well was actually much closer and going much worse. The fighting in Pokrovsk will continue. Russian forces will keep pushing. Ukrainian forces will keep defending. Small tactical victories will be claimed by both sides. The real question is whether Ukraine can hold long enough for Russian logistics to break, or for international support to shift the balance. But they're fighting the same war, and that war is far from over. The flames shooting into the Moscow sky sent a message that every Russian could understand. This war has consequences. It's not happening in some distant province you never think about. It's here. Your infrastructure is vulnerable. Your security isn't guaranteed. For Ukrainians, the message was different. We're not just defending, we're attacking. We're making Russia pay for every kilometer they advance. We're hitting them where it hurts. The strategic question remains, can Ukraine sustain this kind of two-front approach, defending critical towns like Pokrovsk while conducting deep strikes inside Russia, long enough for Russian capacity to break? The answer will determine how this war ends. But for now, in early November 2025, what's clear is this: Ukraine is fighting on its own terms. Not just reacting to Russian moves, but forcing Russia to react to Ukrainian initiatives. Not just defending territory, but destroying Russian capacity to take territory. The soldier in Pokrovsk, checking his rifle, knows his mission. Hold this town, deny Russia this victory, make them pay for every meter. The saboteur who placed charges on the Moscow pipeline knew his mission too. Make this war expensive, make it unsustainable, make Russia question whether the cost is worth it. Two different missions, two different methods, one unified strategy. Survive long enough to win. The fires are still burning near Moscow. The fighting still rages in Pokrovsk. And the war grinds on. But Ukraine is still in the fight, still striking back, still refusing to surrender. That's not just resistance. That's a nation fighting for its survival with every tool it has.